Hello, everyone. My name is Lori Wood, and I am a certified family law mediator and a certified divorce specialist. I have been in the family law industry for 30 years, helping people navigate divorces, whether it is helping them reach a settlement agreement, helping them with divorce documents, or helping them navigate the emotions that come with it. Today, we're going to talk about what dating looks like after divorce or post-divorce. And I am back with my friend and former client, Shannon, who has graciously agreed to talk with me about her experiences and has bravely said that there's no topic off limits and we're going to do this unfiltered. So I'm really excited to have you back, Shannon. Thank you. And we're going to just jump in a few minutes. But as we know, divorce is very traumatic and can be very emotional. And the trauma and the emotions, they just aren't necessarily over when the paperwork's done. Self-esteem or lack thereof can be an issue, especially if we had a spouse that made us feel less than or inadequate. And some of us may feel like a failure just because we've been through a divorce. So the trauma and the emotions absolutely have an impact on the decision to date, not just when, but if at all, and how, and what it looks like. And then certainly there are other considerations that go into dating. When is the right time? Will people think it's too soon? How do I meet someone? Do friends and family try and set me up? What if I don't want to go down that road? And then do you tell your date you're divorced when? And it can be overwhelming. A lot goes into the decision just to dip your toe back in the dating pool. It can be overwhelming and just make you want to run screaming for the hills. So let's just jump in. Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you for being here again today.
Of course.
So you are post-divorce. Yours is a few months back. I'm not remembering the exact timeline, but it's been a while. Yeah. And I know that you didn't jump right into the dating pool. That was something that you really thought out.
Very much so. Yeah. I think in my case too, there was, I guess, a longer separation as well. So I think by the time the divorce, filing for the divorce and going through that process, I think it was probably like 6 months, I want to say. But I guess to myself, it was when I got to that 6 months, I was thinking, it's really been over a year, of just not being with my, my spouse at that point. And I think I just woke up one day and was like, what's the worst that could happen if I got on a dating app or went on a date with somebody or just looked at somebody differently.
Just kind of started off.
Yeah, just a little toe in the pool. I luckily had some single friends that I think they had also told me a lot of their, I won't say horror stories, but just the dating apps, it's just, they don't have a great reputation. Depends on which one you're looking at. But I had been hearing that for so long. And I think, but at the same time, I wanted to just say okay, well, I would like to experience it for myself. What are dating apps like? Is it really that bad?
I know dating has changed so much, especially, and you raised a good point, but especially for people who have been married a long time.
Yes.
Dating is not the same as it was.
No.
And then you also, like I said, raised a good point. Just because the divorce was final, and it may be final 2 months ago, but sometimes people have been separated for a year, 2 years, months. So they've had time to kind of go through the emotions and decide whether or not they're ready to date. And while some may view it as too soon, unless you're in that person's shoes, I always say they weren't part of your marriage. Don't let them be part of your divorce, because it's really an individual thing when it is best for you, when you're ready.
Yeah.
Before we jump into all the nitty gritty and dating apps and all that stuff, is there anything that, was your confidence in place after it? Was it you lacking? I mean, what was some of the things that you had to work through before you made the decision to dip that toe back in the water? Well,
as you recall, I was pretty low when we met. And I think I had told you something like, who will want me?
I know. And I still have it.
And you were like, what do you mean? And I was like,
who wouldn't want you? Right.
Who would want me? I think with most people, right? You get married, you get a little comfortable, then COVID hits, right? So you're packing on a little extra, little meat in the back.
Or you get a little older, when COVID or not, that meat comes anyway.
I was working from home. It's not like I was getting up every morning and doing my hair. And so I think there was a lot that went into just not necessarily fall of my marriage, but for me in general as a person, I lost myself, right? And so it was then having to kind of look in the mirror and say, you are pretty. You do have a lot to offer, but that was like a lot of work that you and I did together,
right,
of just like, you have this great shell. And if you need to feel better about yourself by doing A, B, and C, then you should do that. And so I think that's where, like, because I think I was just so used to looking at myself in the mirror, right? Of just plain Jane, whatever.
right.
But that's not me. Like, I like to feel good about myself. And so,
you deserve to.
Yeah. I didn't have the motivation when, you know, you're going through a separation or a divorce. Like, to me, there wasn't any motivation to put on a cute outfit.
Right.
But to me, that heightened my self-confidence of just like feeling good in a pair of jeans, or, I mean, it's just stupid stuff like that. It's
the little things. It's like a cute pair of shoes.
It's just literally taking care of yourself.
Right. And so many women, whether the spouse had anything to do with it or made us feel less than or criticized, they go through a divorce and it wreaks havoc. I mean, you're stressed, you're overwhelmed, you're tired, and you're barely getting from one day to the next, let alone remembering who you are, caring for yourself, liking yourself.
Yeah.
And so a lot of women or men, when they get divorced, they're like, who the hell would want me now?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to like yourself first. And we did the work, and all of a sudden, I mean, you started coming in a little cute, and you could just see that you're
sort
confident,
smelling good, brushing my hair. Well, like, to me, the physical aspect was like a huge part of my confidence, because but then also, like, emotionally, such an overthinker. You know, I was like, I cry all the time. Things trigger me. So it was like, if I go on a date, like, again, what's going to happen? Like,
what's going to come out of my face?
So there was a lot of like overthinking of like, so it was kind of like, okay, what can I control? And so it was like, okay, physically taking care of yourself and doing those things. Okay, that helps my self-confidence. And then you and I just like, you building me up and just being like, these are all the things that you have to offer. You just have to like realize them in yourself. And so,
because I see them. I know they're there, but I can tell you all day long, you have to believe them.
Yeah.
And you absolutely did the work.
Yeah.
And then I know that your friends were kind of, and I'm not pushing you, but everybody's like, you know, try this, do that.
Yeah.
But you had to do it when it was true to you, when you were truly ready.
I literally like woke up one day and just said, what if I'm emotionally ready? Like, that was the biggest piece, right?
Right.
Like,
we can put on all the cute outfits we want, but until you're emotionally ready, and we should put on all the cute outfits until we're ready to emotionally do it, because fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Feel good about yourself on the outside, work on the inside, and then just go for it. And then don't let anybody else's rules apply to you.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's, you know, experience is so different. There's some people that it could be years before, you know, they feel like they're ready, or it could be 2 days. I mean, it's just, I just know the feeling that I felt was like, that actually doesn't sound so scary to me to actually go out with somebody. Because you think about all the things that could be. I mean, that's holding hands with somebody, or
such a
liking them. It's just weird to think about.
Butterflies that you haven't had in so many years. Right. And that's what's difficult for some. Yeah. And for some, they're like, oh my God, get me into the dating pool. I know it doesn't, it's great that it's not my spouse, but for everybody, the journey is different.
Yeah.
And I've had conversations with clients, and it pertained to me too. When I got divorced, even though it was amicable and he's a good guy, it just didn't work. I mean, there was a point where I felt like I was just kind of on the floor crying. And the next day, well, maybe I sat on my knees and cried. And the next day I thought, well, I just try and stand up 1 foot at a time. And then pretty soon one day I just woke up and I'm like, I feel like not only walking, but dancing. Yeah. So time really heals, and everybody has their own journey. Yeah. But let's circle back, because now I want to get into the nitty gritty part of dating. Because you said that all your friends were telling you about these dating apps.
Dating apps, yes.
And so I don't know if we want to get into which one, but tell me about your first experience, or how you felt putting in your information, or just peeking at the people on the dating apps.
So I mean, so there's so many, and each app sort of has their thing. So
that in itself can be overwhelming.
Well, it's like, you know, for example, Tinder, like, kind of has the reputation of like, it's the hookup app, you know, and then you have like your Match and your eHarmonies, right? Like, those are like, I'm finding the love of my life. Yes. And so I was like, okay, I could try Bumble, because it's the female gets to choose or swipe on, you know, whatever people, but then you like the female has to initiate the conversation.
So you have complete control.
To me, it was like, that's probably a good place to start for me. I can have control over this. And so it was probably the hardest part though, was like, really was having to talk about yourself in a profile, because you're basically you're kind of selling yourself.
I was going to say, it's like window dressing. And I would think that would be really hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And, people can interpret what you're saying. It's just a weird, kind of overwhelming, scary thing to do.
It's like a resume. I mean, it's like,
it's a dating resume.
Yeah. And it goes back to like my work, like the industry I work in. It's like that. Yeah. What is going to make me look the most, like stand out the most, that somebody would want to swipe on? And how do you pick? I mean, it's just like, do you try to be witty? Do you try to be like sarcastic? Do you not say anything? Do you say too much? And so,
oh my gosh.
It's very overwhelming.
Just doing it. But I do like that it's Bumble that you said that has the women get to initiate, because I've heard others where a woman gets on there and she's just overwhelmed by hundreds or thousands of men. And I mean, how do you sift through?
Right.
So did you read other profiles before you decided?
So I did do the little thing where I was like, well, what's everyone else doing? So I checked out my friends' profiles, and then I think I had kind of kept myself like, pretty much there was maybe a picture or something. And then I was kind of swiping through just to kind of see like, what am I working with? And I think just at some point I was like, you know what, like, I just need to start with what I think is me. Like, it's not about comparing yourself to other people. What do you want to put out there?
Right.
Because
and
you can always change it. You can always change it. You can change your pictures. You can change the different prompts. You can, again, if you want to be witty, if you want to be, sweet, whatever, but you can also put like your preferences, and you can actually set like, I would say like pretty like strong boundaries in the sense of like, what are you looking for? And a lot of people put like something casual. They're looking for a relationship, blah, blah, blah. I did learn the hard way that most people lie.
I was going to say, so you're trying to be honest and be you, because if you find someone that you connect with, and after talking to them, you want to meet them. It's not like you can put a picture that's 10, 15 years old that you don't even look like it anymore, or lie about who you are, because at that first meeting, it's probably going to be pretty obvious.
Yes.
So you were authentic. You took the time, you were you, but you found that many people were not.
Yes. So, it's kind of the double-edged sword. So there's a lot of really great conversations that I had. Because really you start off messaging in the app. Sometimes it's just stays on the app. Sometimes the person will say like, hey, can we just like text, here's my number. And I feel like, I don't know if I could put a percentage to it. Definitely at least half the time it would start off as a very genuine conversation. And then it would turn very much into a looking for a hookup buddy or what, you know what I mean? So it just would kind of turn a corner, and you're like, really? Like, we were having such a nice conversation.
And you had to go
and then you had to go there.
It's like sending one of those pics that they think we appreciate that we just do not appreciate.
Exactly.
And that shocks you when you're expecting words to come across, and then bam, there it is.
Yeah.
So is there like a benefit to just texting with somebody? Does it mean something? Listen, you got to fill me in because I know nothing about
I think that's just where I tried. So I went on the app, connected with a bunch of people. And I think from there, like you could just say, okay, so like just say I was having 10 conversations, 5 of them already basically, send you one of those unsolicited pics that you didn't want in the first place. And then you're like, okay, really? Now I'm left with 5. And then you're like, okay, 3 of them now just stop responding. So they've moved on. So then you're down. So then you have 2 left, and you're like, there's probably my third choice, but you know what I mean? But that's where you think you kind of put yourself in the other like person's shoes, where you're like, this is just the age of you. It's always the grass is greener. Because you know what I mean? So it's like, this is how it must feel for the men. But as a female, right? Like I just went from having 10, matches that I, like probably felt, suitors, maybe one was more attractive than the other. Maybe one was a better conversation than the other, whatever it was. But then you get down to those bottom 2 and, maybe one comes to fruition in the form of like an actual in-person date. Right. Or maybe both do. And you show up and the guy ends up being 400 pounds heavier than he said he was, or just.
Which would be fine if he just told you to begin with.
Yes. Or you said you were 6 foot. That's like 5'7", like, and your big old shoes. So it's just, but so then you go on those 2 dates and then you're kind of like, well, now I got 0. How did I start with 10? Now I got 0.
How do you feel after that? Because clearly some people are great behind a computer and great at texting.
Yes.
And then you meet them in person and it's just awkward or it's not as great as we wanted it to be.
I call it's the catfish effect. I think I was telling you about that because I said, I think after I'd been on the apps for like a few months and I was like, there's definitely a grass is greener effect. And so it's like, if a guy, let's just say the guy is, swipes on you, you match. So you basically both have to swipe on each other to get a match.
So in this particular one, you swipe first, but he's got to swipe back.
So yes. And so sometimes they have swiped on you first and then sometimes, so it just is one of those things.
But both parties have to be in.
Both parties have to swipe on each other to match.
That's probably one of the only things that I'm liking about the dating app so far.
Totally.
It kind of, if you don't want it, it needs it. Yeah.
But there's plenty of people that I swipe on that don't swipe on back, right? And
I find that hard to believe, but okay.
There's I was like, come on.
Just scared the button. Come on, baby, swipe your mama.
But you basically, it's not like you're, I met my ex through mutual friends, and so it's like there's something like tangible there, right? Like people can vouch for them. Yeah. It's organic. People vouch for them. People know them. And so in this, this way of dating, it's like you have this virtual pick of the litter. And I think it's easy for people to say, okay, I swiped on this person, but 3 people after that person was way more like what I'm into. It's
like hometown buffet for dating. It's a little bit, you get, the potatoes on your plate and it's fine. It's a baked potato, but next thing you know, there's freaking a gratin potatoes or macaroni and cheese. It's gotta be just so hard. And some people take great pictures and the pictures really do a lot for them.
Yep.
And some people take really crappy pictures how do you, I guess it's just trial and error.
It's a total crapshoot. And so it's like, but it's the same effect, I think, for both. I think the women sort of give the men a bad rap of like, someone else hotter comes along. And it's like, yeah, but we do the same thing. Like you just have a spectrum, right? And I can say that the 10 people that I connect with, right, I probably could rank them 1 to 10, like based on their profile. But me, I'm not that, I'm not that kind of person. Like it's the connection for me. Right. And so it is really hard. And so you do have to kind of feel that out. But I think there's always that, there's a grass is greener. And then there's this catfish effect, which if you've ever seen the show or like, it's like I feel like whenever I would watch that show, these people would have these amazing connections and, they would never FaceTime. They would never maybe even talk like on the phone. It was all messaging. And you can be very flattering and flirty in messaging, but be a total dud in person. And so that was kind of what I had to sort of learn the hard way was, wow, this is either like, you can kind of tell like either we're meshing or we're not. And then the people that you would mesh with horribly well. I mean, just like, wow, this is amazing. And then all of a sudden, right, like they would stop messaging you back or get canceled on. Yeah. Or I think there's been plenty of dates, right, that were like, we're going to hang out on this day or whatever. And then you like never hear back from them. And you're like,
that's just heartbreaking. It's so hard to keep putting yourself out there.
Yeah. So I think for some, it definitely, it's a double-edged sword. It can boost your confidence and it can also really hurt. It can be very hurtful. But honestly, the way that I took it, because a lot of my friends had said, because it's the ghosting thing, right? So everyone's like, oh, guys just ghost you. And honestly, like, I was like, that's fine, but I'm going to call them out. Like, I just think that there's just like a respect that you should have for people and it should be mutual. And if you're not into me and I'm not into you, we can just be honest about that and be on our merry way. I can wish you the best of luck, whatever. And so I would ask my friends, well, what do you do when these guys ghost you? And they're like, nothing. So I was like, screw that. I started sending them like the ghost emoji, like it's just to be like, you know what, like, let's hold people accountable because this is really hurtful to people. This is why dating apps get such a bad rap. And just because both men and women ghost each other.
And for anybody who doesn't know what ghosting is, either somebody married or, going through a divorce that hasn't been in the dating field yet, and now that we've terrified the crap out of them, ghosting is when, just like that, they disappear. You never hear from them.
And you're like, what the heck happened to you?
And, you get emotionally invested or you get excited about someone and they just don't show up again.
Yeah.
It's awful. You're left wondering. There's all this, you can overthink it. Then you start self-doubt or whatever it is.
Half the time I think that they die. I'm like, you must have died. If you're not talking to me anymore, clearly you've had an accident and you're something happened to you.
You have no fingers left.
You have passed away. Yeah. Because why would you stop talking to me?
That's right.
I just stop talking to you.
Right. But there should be an etiquette. And I think people, because they're behind a computer or an iPhone or whatever, it's easier just to not say. Nobody has balls anymore.
Yes.
And you don't have to break somebody's heart or be rude and say,
just be honest.
You have, too big a feet for me or whatever.
Yeah.
Just, I don't think we're a match.
Yeah.
I wish you the best of luck. Wouldn't that be so much better than just disappearing? Yes. And how hard is that to say? You're behind a screen. They can't get to you anyway. Why not just have common courtesy? So I love that you called.
I know that I'm only like one person, and I know of other people that still do that. But it's like, you know what? If I could say a nice, just, hey, I haven't heard back from you. Wish you well. What I need, in a partner is communication or something. Just to say, hey, like, I know we haven't talked, but blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm just going to go ahead and step away from this conversation, or, hey, I don't feel like that was, very respectful to not respond. It's almost like you're not teaching someone a lesson, because I don't think that that's like the part of it, but I think it's just to say, wow, that was maybe like adult of that person. And
it's
like,
maybe that for you too, though.
Be a domino effect, so that maybe the next time that guy, matches with somebody and decides to do that, maybe he'll think twice. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I love that, because not only does it close the door for you, and it gives you back the power. Now you said to them, I'm done with this. So you're not left sitting by the phone or watching when the phone bings, hoping
I would want to know.
Right. And so maybe, if, like you said, not only have you taken back the power, but maybe you've taught them the right way to respond later. You've done that, I know. And have you gotten any response from it?
Yes. So I will say that, it's definitely the more challenging way to go, but at the same time, it's like, it's very empowering to just say, like, I'm basically holding you accountable to ghosting or whatever you've done.
Right. You're calling them out.
You're calling them out, because people don't call people out. And again, it doesn't have to be disrespectful. It's just to say, look, I am in my mid 30s. Like, and again, maybe that comes from like the divorce thing where you're like, I know how to be in an adult relationship.
Right.
And I don't know what's going on here, but that's just not how you treat people. We're not 21 and immature.
No. And I love that you're setting boundaries for how you're going to be treated. Mm-hmm. You take back the power. And most people have this thing that you either have to be, kissing somebody's ass or very complimentary, or an asshole. There's no middle ground.
Yeah.
You just simply need to be polite and try not to hurt people's feelings, but be honest. And I love that. Yeah. And I just think anytime that we can not necessarily be in control of the situation, because so much in life is out of our control, but take our power back and set clear boundaries.
Yes.
And I think people who have gone through a divorce, especially people who are not in their 20s, we're also thinking, don't waste my time.
Yes.
We may not be wanting to run out and get married again, but don't waste my time. If we're not a match, that's fine. There's other fish in the sea. The grass is greener.
We'll unmatch and we'll swipe on the next one.
Yeah, I'm not good, but just to leave people hanging. But that's what helped me.
That is what helped me specifically, was being able to take that power back, set those boundaries. And I've also met a lot of really amazing people, right? Like, so it's not all bad, right? I think you just have to accept that there is going to be those horror stories or the unsolicited pictures that you don't want.
Oh my gosh.
That's just as transparent as you can get. Yes, that happens, right?
Yeah.
But
more often than not. And really, they really think that that's all baby, here we come.
That's another thing that I will call out and say, and I will literally respond and say, I'm literally going to giggle and show my friends. Like, that did nothing for me. Stop doing that. Like, because I almost think like that must be like an insecurity or something with them. Like,
to lead with that. What do you? What can you possibly say?
I'm more interested in the color of your eyes. Like,
in all honesty, and I divorced in 2013. I had a small window of being single, and I wasn't even dating. I was actually talking on the phone to a friend of mine, and he was going through something. And I think he was drinking, and I didn't really know him all that well. But I don't know, all of a sudden I'm seeing 3 little dots, and the next thing popped up, a little one-eyed monster. Yeah. And I'm just like, is that real time? After I picked my jaw back up off the floor? Because that's the first one that I had ever received. And
you're like, what am I supposed to do with it?
I mean, it really did nothing but say, gotta go now.
Yeah.
Because once I found it, what do you do with that picture?
You giggle and you show your friends. That's what we're really doing.
If my mom was still with me, she would have really appreciated it because she was just that cool.
I show my married sister and she's like, Shannon, stop.
But there's some things you just can't unsee.
I'm like, the rest of the world needs to know.
I have a girlfriend.
What guys do.
I have a friend, my best friend of 20 plus years. She's struggling with the dating scene, and I hear her horror stories, and I hear a couple single friends' horror stories. And this gentleman sent I can't even describe them here today, but I can't unsee them.
Yeah.
So you are shocking your friends. Yeah. Images they can't unsee.
Yes. And so I think it's just like, it's how you react to it. To me, it's just humorous to me. But again, it's just like, that helps me with my like confidence and just knowing that like I'm going to take the power back. Like, don't send that to me. Like, I know exactly like, oh, we might have been having a great conversation about like, you were talking about what are you looking for? And they'll be like a relationship, blah, blah, blah. And then boom, you get the picture and you're like,
I know it's not like you would say, I'm interested in long walks on the beach and then lead with a boob. I mean, it's crazy.
We would never think to do that.
No.
And that's a difference.
No. And anybody listening who's a male, stop sending them. It's not the reaction that you are going for.
Unless we
specifically ask, you're correct.
So no thank
you. We will let you know if we
you.
Want you to send one. But until then, keep it in your pants. All right. So,
but I will just say, because we don't want to scare people, because there are a lot of amazing, and I told you about some of the amazing people that I met.
That may not be a romantic connection, but you've built a friendship.
Yes.
And you're meeting all these people
that I still talk with today.
I love that.
And so it's,
and it's whatever you want it to be. Whatever the two of you
certainly haven't, but did I get to go out there and practice? I mean, it's literally, go back to like the whole like example of like interviewing for a job. You put yourself back out there to be like, do I remember how to have a conversation on a date?
Right.
Because it's been so long.
You're flexing muscles that you have not used in a long time.
Not around before I was married, so it's like it's all, and then throw COVID in there, and just everything else going on in the world. And it's just, dating is just so different, but it's also very nice to find so many more divorced people out there.
I was going to say, do you find that there's more, I don't want to get into percentages or statistics or anything. This is just us two girls talking.
Sure.
But do you find like there's more people who have been through a divorce or have the same experiences than not?
Yeah. I think with my age and the age group that I look to date, definitely.
And we could go so many ways with this. We could talk about dating with kids and dating with that, and we'll save that topic for another day. But I'm curious. I'm sure it's not something you lead with on your profile, or maybe it is people being honest and this is who I am, take me or leave me.
Yeah.
But let's say you both swipe and you talk in, and then you go off the site and you're texting and it's a great conversation. Then you agree to meet and you meet. Where in this journey do you say I'm divorced? And is it awkward for you to do that?
Yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. It's because it feels like it's one of these like things that becomes your identity, and it shouldn't.
Right. But most people let it define them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I think, especially when there's kids involved, I feel like there's probably a lot of assumption. Because I don't have children, there's potentially an assumption that I've never been married. So I do go in with a little bit of an assumption that this person, especially like I said, if they have kids, I'm probably more prone to think that they're, or maybe they were just in a long-term relationship, maybe not necessarily married, but enough that they've had children.
Yeah, we do assume things.
So sometimes it comes up, I think, even like on the early stages, especially if that's like, that could be like a non-negotiable for somebody there. I hear all the time that men, that something about, dating women with kids is like a huge turnoff, but they have kids and it's okay. But dating a girl that has kids. Yeah. So there's just like little things. But I think it's just like with everybody, you have to put out there, like if that was a non-negotiable, because like you can say things like where you like, you maybe don't want to date somebody with kids, right? Or you do, it doesn't matter, whatever. So you can set like little filters, which I think is helpful. But and
I think when it comes to kids, you absolutely should, because no child should ever be subject to parent's partner that doesn't really want to be there. It's hard enough to parent your own children.
Yeah.
And it's hard to step parent. And if you're not, anybody, in fact, when I went on my very first date with my husband, way back when, and we were friends for a year, but just casual friends. And he took me to dinner And we were telling each other, and I just said, I have a daughter. I don't want any more children. And he didn't have kids. And I said, so if you do, it's been a lovely dinner. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
But we won't do this again.
Yeah.
And I just laid it all on the table, and half my friends thought I was crazy. But he came to my office the next day and said, you told me who you are and what you wanted, and this is who I am and what I wanted. It worked, and it worked for a long time. But I feel like kids, that's a non-negotiable either, because you can't just be half in or, I see how it's going to go, because that's just not fair to the kids. Well, and I've gotten off topic.
No. But the divorce thing, though, is it's not a filter. So it is, it's not a filter. And
I guess it shouldn't be.
Yeah. I think some people can say like they're looking for marriage, but you can't say like, by live divorced. So, but sometimes, it comes up in the conversation right away, like in the actual like first texting phase. Sometimes it comes up like over dinner, and there's actually been quite a few surprises of men that I have like gone out on dates with, and they like, I was like, oh, there's no way this guy's been a bachelor his entire life. Because I also think as like now a divorced person with no kids, if you are finding a man that is divorced with no kids, or I guess going on a date with a man that does not have kids, I think it's a crapshoot. Yeah. And so there is this like assumption that everyone wants kids. And so there's been plenty of guys that I've gone out with that just said, I was divorced. We just ended up not being on the same page about wanting kids. And so we divorced. So it's been both. I've gone on dates with men who, end up telling me they're divorced, and I'm shocked. I'm like, wow.
We never know what somebody's been through until.
And those are the ones that I'm like, they're shocked about me as well, And so, so that makes you kind of feel a little bit better that I was like, wow, there's all these men that I would never think, but then they are. And so it's like, it makes you not feel so alone.
I was going to say, it probably helps make you, and then you have some common bond.
Sure.
Do you find that some of these divorced men are angry and they want to spend time bashing their spouses?
Yeah. So there is a guy recently that I was going on some dates with, and he is probably more in the position of my ex.
Okay.
And so it's almost like you're dating your ex.
Oh God.
And so like in the sense of like where they ended with a divorce. And so, I think, the spouse, kept the house, kept the pets, whatever. And so little things would come out where he's like, yeah, I'm really upset about this, or I didn't get paid for that, or blah, blah, blah. And so I'll just kind of giggle and laugh, because I'm just like, oh my gosh, like it's just so interesting to hear it from the other side. But then it's not a bad conversation, but I think it's also like helpful. To be like, what's your perspective? And it helps me learn something. I think it helps him maybe learn some patience, or just like.
And nothing may come of it, but you guys are hearing different perspectives.
It doesn't mean that I don't want to still see him. Right. But there's also been, guys that, I've been on dates with men who are literally was in the same exact position as me.
Wow.
And so there is a little bit of the trauma bond. I think that does happen. But I think at the end of the day, right, like it's about whether you want it to identify you or not. Like, do you want that to be your identity? Is like the scorn, divorce, whatever.
Yeah, and the people who are still so angry should not be dating yet.
Exactly.
Because you have to kind of deal with that before you dump it at the next person's feet. I mean, much like the unwanted pictures. Yes. Nobody wants a partner who is so venomous and still so angry. It doesn't lead well into your potential relationship. So,
I had to tell a man who was, he was a little bit older, but he was probably married for like 20 something years.
Wow.
So he was married young, did the whole kid thing, whatever, and trying to get back into the dating pool. And I felt like I was lecturing him a little bit, because I just said,
you were schooling him
a little bit, where I just said, like, just based on the things that he was telling me, I think at some point I just said, I really just don't know if you're ready to date. And he was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, for me, because I think we'd been doing this whole back and forth thing, but we were like texting a ton. We were talking on the phone a ton. There was a lot of just like life pictures, not bad pictures,
right?
Just like, hey, this is me and my kids and a soccer game and this and that. There's a lot of communication. It was great. But to me, I was like, I am looking to meet this person in person. Like, I don't want to just be like your internet buddy.
Right.
So to me, it was like I had to put the boundary out there to say, look, it's been 2 weeks. We have not met in person. We have not
in Japan or across the country.
But he was like, I don't have I think it was something with there was no agreement with like the custody agreement or something with the kids.
Right.
And so he just was like, obviously my kids are my priority. So whatever free time I have. And I said, I respect that tremendously.
Right.
I can only imagine what your kids are going through, but you're trying to juggle now tossing in dating.
Yeah.
And to me, what I need out of this is not what you can give me. And that's okay. I just don't know if you're ready to date because you don't even have time to hang out, like to physically hang out with somebody.
I love that.
And it fizzled.
Yeah.
And it just was like, look, I'm looking to meet somebody and you have great, like the communication was great, but I would like to physically meet you. And he already bailed on me once.
Yeah. And
so
maybe the timing is off, but you probably taught him something. And it's just your honesty.
Yeah.
If people would conduct themselves that way.
Yeah.
It's
quite the thing. While you're married, after you're married,
right?
Honesty in general is pretty nice.
And communication. And the way that you clearly communicated your expectations and what you need in a relationship. If more people did that during marriage, laid it on the table. And that's why I do marital mediation.
Yeah.
Because money, sex, whatever, we all have expectations of what we want. The problem that we fail out is communicating. Mm-hmm. And the other party, if they know this, hey, this is what I need. This is the amount of times I want to be intimate every week. This is how I am. I'm a saver, not a spender. This is, I need you to pat my bottom 30 times a month. Whatever your expectation is, if the other party doesn't know, it's already a failure. Yeah. And then if you tell them, they get the option before you're married to say, I can't meet those expectations, and you guys move on. But if you're married and you've already committed without doing the work, then you can lay it all on the line and you can figure out a way that both parties are heard, expectations are met. So the fact that you're conducting yourself that way during your dating life, it's just going to, when you do find that special guy,
it's very freeing. It's very like, it just makes you feel, like not empowered in like a bad way. I just think it's like, it makes me feel better that I'm not some like second fiddle to a guy. Like I know it probably sounds worse than it is, but I think just like in my marriage, I feel like I took such a backseat. Right. Such a backseat.
So you now know that's not what.
So now I'm like, well, it's just me. I'm the priority. And so like, I have to do things that make me happy for me and not for someone else.
Until you are a we, you absolutely do.
Yeah.
All right. So before we wrap up, I just wanted, because there's a lot of double standards on men and women.
Oh yeah.
Men get divorced. They go out and date. I'm sure there's some judgment there, but they can be intimate with whomever, whenever, without, and they're applauded for it. Women, God forbid that we conduct ourselves the same and play the field and enjoy people's company because we then get slut shamed or, we've got that scarlet letter on our head or whatever it is. I'm just going to let you tell me your experience.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So tell me, number one, have you felt judged for your choices?
Yes.
And number two, intimacy after divorce can be strange at the very first time. So I'll let you lead with whichever one you want to talk about first.
Have I been judged? Yes. Have I had to? I'll say this. With my close friends and family, they know me, they trust me, they know that I make good decisions. And so it's a sort of a, hey, Shannon, are you sure you need to be doing that? And also, it's just, again, with COVID, it's like you just are going to have other people in your life that when you go out and you socialize or you're being intimate with somebody, it's just like you don't know that person in the sense of.
It's added a whole nother
So
layer.
it has added very much like, there's a COVID question. But so God, sex after divorce. And the best way that I can say is it's thrilling.
There you go.
To be in a place where, again, going back to like this pathetic, sad shell of a person that you met, to be like, feel so empowered over like my body and just to know that like I know that I make good decisions in my life. And if I feel like I want to do something and do it safely and do it where I'm not going to hurt myself,
right. Or anyone else,
why the hell not?
I applaud you for
why
that.
the hell not? I don't think that has to be like the whole, I mean, I get the slut shaming thing. I think there are ways that probably women conduct themselves that's probably why. But I think when you're an adult and you like to have relations with other men, and it could be the same guy over and over, it could be different men. I mean, I think you have to be smart. I think you have to be safe. I think
if it's two people who set the boundaries in a consented relationship, however that relationship looks, whatever the boundaries are, if both people are adult, both people are honest, safe, and comfortable, I see nothing wrong, and I applaud you, because there is judgment.
Yeah.
There's judgment when you date after divorce, how soon people are comparing relationships or new suitors to the old. There's judgment about how you conduct yourself, what you wear, where you meet. COVID now, there's judgment on everything, and God forbid, intimacy. Yeah. I don't know who all these men are doing it with, because we're not supposed to. Right. So it's just so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I think a confident, strong woman should be able to make up her own decision and be intimate with a partner if she so chooses, as long as it's not hurting anybody else.
Yeah,
and it's nobody's damn business.
It's nobody's damn business.
Yeah.
But I think there's just this. I mean, for me, like there was basically no sex life at the end of my marriage, and so it was like, it sucked to blame myself. Where it was like, it's me. It's 100%
feel
me.
Sexy, or
you don't feel sexy, and so it was terrifying the first time.
I was going to say, would you elaborate a little bit on the first time?
I was terrified.
Just the emotions. We don't need to go into.
I think it was just this. Oh my gosh, this is bringing me back to being like before I was married, and because it is weird to go from a place where you weren't being intimate with your spouse at the time,
right,
to then being intimate, number one, and being intimate with somebody else. And I know this is going to sound so bad, but it was like, it wasn't me. I just didn't want to have relations with my ex. Like
that's, that
was like just a really crappy lesson to learn, because it made me very sad. But I was like, wow, I just thought, I have no sex drive. Just medical stuff that I had going on. I literally was like, it's me. Like I will never be like aroused by a man ever again. And then it's like, I meet, a guy, and we end up doing that. And I was like, holy crap. Like, so it's not me. I really like sex, and I'm going to have lots of it now.
So that's a hell of a realization, and a really good one. But I
did not want to be intimate with that.
But you didn't know it at the time.
Did not know
And
it.
you blamed yourself and your body and everything else.
Yeah.
I have spoken to so many women who think, especially the ones that are a little older in life, and they think, my body's changed, my drive has changed. Yep. It's just me. Sex isn't going to be a part of my life.
I literally
all that stuff. I couldn't even get.
It's going to be a piercing that close up. Like it just
there's cobwebs there.
There's cobwebs. It's going to close up, and I literally just live a life of no sex.
And there's going to be no partner who's going to be interested in that.
Yeah.
And then it just turns out we're with the wrong partner. It doesn't make them a bad guy.
Yes.
But women and men also, I guess I've always thought that women and men view foreplay very differently. Men, it's physical. Mm-hmm. Women, it's emotional. Like it's how the man treats you all day.
Yes.
If he gets up and he gives you a kiss on the back of the neck, and one of my favorites is, guides you by the small of your back, mm-hmm. or tells you he loves you, or takes the trash out, or dresses the kids.
Yeah.
It's all those acts during the day that is our foreplay.
Totally.
And if we're not getting that, then the bulk of us, or a lot of us, can't just get turned on.
Yes.
But then when we're not turned on and we're not satisfying our spouse or doing our wifely duty, then there must be something wrong with us. Mm-hmm. And so it had to just be mind-blowing for you to go, holy crap.
Yeah.
It wasn't me.
Because I think it's also like yes, there's definitely connections that like I've made with people, but sometimes it also can just be physical.
And you're a woman, you're not allowed to say it's just sometimes just sex.
Yeah. Like it's just, exactly. Because it's like, I think as women, like to me, like, it was a very intimate thing with my ex, right? It was like, there was so much more than just the actual act of sex.
Right.
And so now it's like, just kind of shifting that perspective to say, until I find that person, or until like I want to have that connection like that with a person, like it's okay that I can separate the sort of the intimacy part from the sex part, because there can be.
As long as it works for you.
As long as
this
it
is
works
the
for
thing
them.
that most people don't understand is we live by what we think others want us to do.
Yeah.
Or we're scared to do what feels good to us for judgment.
Yeah.
But if it works for you
Mm-hmm.
and you're not hurting yourself,
yeah,
and you're not hurting anybody, and everybody's consenting and on the same page,
yeah,
we should be able to do whatever makes us happy and feels good.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, that feels pretty good.
It sure does. Yeah. And I think it's also just like finding like, what you, I don't know. It's also, there's like an exploration, I guess, maybe part of it too. It's like, you're also kind of re-exploring like sex that you like, or what, like, just, I don't know. It's almost,
you're relearning everything.
You're relearning
your life's just something like, not
you've been
just
with the same person for so long, and you've known, I mean, I can recall like just the routine. Yeah. Like you could always, I could always rely on this particular routine. And sometimes I would be in it and I'd be like, oh, this is what we're doing next. And then after this is what we're going to do next. You know what I mean?
So there's sometimes a comfort to routine and consistency, but then we have no opportunity to discover our likes or dislikes or do something different.
Totally.
And much like the dating apps or the a la carte at hometown buffet, we need to have that buffet to understand.
Totally. Has there been some really bad ones? Yeah.
Oh my God. And we're gonna have to maybe have a podcast.
Yes.
About
and then
that.
There's the ones that you're like, I didn't know that was possible. Like
elevation,
oh my God, like
all
just
that stuff.
Yeah. And so I think it's just been, so it's my friends always joke because they're like, Shannon, you have like the funniest stories. Because to me, it's like, that's how, like, I like to make people laugh. I like to make it humorous. But I also just like have these, like, I love just having these like fun little stories in my back pocket to be like, this is what dating is like when you're 36. And everyone's like, you need to do like a blog or something and just like tell your funny like dating stories. And it's like, but I love it. I wish more people would talk about it.
I think that should be the next show that we do.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the funny stories of dating. And, if you want to bring a girlfriend, although I like just the two of us and I love your stories, but maybe one of these days we'll do kind of a call-in. Yeah. And people can share their post-divorce dating stories. And we'll see if we can offer any pearls of wisdom. But until then, I just want to thank you. I enjoy you so much. And just watching you in this, I get teary because where you were when we first met was just, you appeared so broken. And the funny and tremendous and strong and confident and beautiful woman that you are today, don't let anybody take that. You just keep doing what you're doing. Be honest to yourself. Mm-hmm. And I'm just privileged just sitting here getting to be a spectator. No. So thank you so much for joining me today. If you need assistance with the emotions of divorce, if you need any help in that area during divorce, and you're stuck and you want a safe place, I would love to help you. It's what I'm passionate about. It's my journey in life to help others get through such a difficult and overwhelming time. My name is Lori Wood. I'm a certified mediator, certified divorce coach. You can reach me at 916-616-6191. 916-616-6191, or reach out to me on Facebook, Lori Wood Spears. Find me, DM me, instant message me. I'm happy to help you. Until our next time, when maybe we talk about all the crazy dating stories, and I might tell a couple that my secretary told me or my girlfriends, and get their permission first. But until the next time, next week, we look forward to it. Be safe and be true to yourself.